Welcome to the Suffer Sooner podcast. Follow along with three average people doing some above average things. We have jobs, families, and we enjoy pushing ourselves to be the best that we can be in gravel, triathlon, and endurance sports. We've made mistakes, conquered what was once impossible to us, and pushed through barriers to come out the other side stronger, smarter, and more willing to find the truth in the dark places that only suffering can take you. Sometimes in life you have to be willing to push yourself in an attempt to get it over faster, and thus you may just have to suffer sooner. Welcome to episode number 7, e-bikes. We're talking about e-bikes today, and do we like them? Do we not like them? What do we use for them? Use them for? Use for them? Yeah. Use what we use them for, and we're going to talk about Serena's first ever e-bike accomplishment of open range gravel. So welcome to episode 7, guys.
Hey.
This makes me very nervous, friends.
And this is all about Serena.
I feel like the e-bike is like that dirty little secret that you know in your head, but you just don't want anyone else to know. And now everyone, I guess, will know that I have an e-bike.
Else. Yeah. So, yeah. The thing is, we have, I have the love-hate relationship with the e-bike, but I love to hear that engine whine and hear it scream as it's going up the hills as I'm pedaling as hard as I can. The only bad part is when you're totally gassed and the person on the e-bike's just riding away from you, laughing the whole time. But it's good.
We started this out. It said the episode title is "E isn't for easy."
Yep.
So, that's the big misconception that a lot of people have, isn't it? Like, an e-bike is not easier, guys. It ain't easier. I don't know what to tell you. It's not easier.
I think what people think they get as they're getting like a motorcycle where you just you have a throttle on your wrist and or your handhold and you're just throttling the e-bike. Mm-hmm. And that's not how it is, right, Serena? You have to actually put in effort to get the motor to kick on.
Yeah, I guess I thought maybe I was getting a Vespa, and it's not that sometimes, much to my disappointment. This podcast comes up today almost because yesterday I've been sick for many days, and yesterday Travis and Danny wanted to go out and do some harder efforts. And in addition to being sick, my regular gravel bike is in the shop. I have done my very best to destroy it. So I went out with them and I'm doing these efforts with them, and I'm looking down and I'm thinking to myself, I'm working just as hard as they are and I am using a motor to do this. Maybe I should just give myself a little bit more credit other than me just feeling like I'm just kind of hanging out, which was not what happened yesterday.
Yeah, I was looking at the training peaks for Serena, and during those efforts, she was putting out her heart rate was in the 160s. So she was doing a full on effort to keep the e-bike going. So, and granted, she wasn't using it in turbo mode, which is full on assist mode. It's just, she uses it in eco mode, which just basically gives you enough assist to kind of negate the weight of the bike, because the bike weighs almost 35 pounds or something like that with a motor and then any kind of batteries that you're carrying on it. So
yeah, so what I think, Travis, we've kind of caught up with a few other podcasts out there, and there seems to be this debate that whether e-bikes should still be allowed, should they not be allowed, are they good in group rides or not good in group rides, and I just don't understand why there's a debate. If somebody wants to ride an e-bike, if that gets them on the bike and gets people moving and encourages them to, get into the sport, isn't that a good thing for everybody?
I mean, that's where I come from. And this is where, I sent you guys some short clips from this podcast that I listened to, and they're the Neuro Show, if you want to look them up or whatever. They're from Australia. They are the typical roadies that are, and I'll say it, they're super elitist. They're going to judge you by your sock height. They're going to make sure that, their kit matches their bottle cages, matches their bar tape, matches their water bottles. If that's who you are as a cyclist, one, you probably have like way too much time on your hands. and if that's what really kind of like sets you apart, then I'm pretty sure that me and you should not be friends, which is fine. Everybody's different. But that's not why I got into cycling. I got into cycling because I like to have fun and go places where you wouldn't. I've seen so many things on my bike that I've never seen, from the side of my car, or that I would go and do just on my own. So cycling as a tool is something that I think everybody should do. And my feeling is, if if you need an e-bike to get there, cool. If you need a tricycle to get there, that's fine too. Like, whatever gets you out and into the world on a bike, which is the best way to see the world, is thumbs up in my book for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I can tell you, my only experience on an e-bike is I, borrowed Serena's e-bike last weekend while she was trying out my bike just for a bike fit. We'll get more on that later. But it was interesting because I was thinking about, as I was riding, and I was having some fun with it at first, like, just seeing how much distance I could put on you guys, but that didn't seem fair after a while. But I can tell you, like, it's not to your point earlier, and Serena, you know this better than anybody in this group anyway, like, it's not easier, and yeah, you can put the turbo mode on, you can do all those things, and that's fine. But even even still, like, it is work, and in the flats, in fact, it's a lot of fun. Like, turn the motor off, it's still a fun bike to ride. And I think, we're starting to see more and more events offer up e-bike divisions, which again, I come back to, it's great because isn't it really about expanding the sport? Isn't it about, giving people an opportunity who wouldn't do this otherwise? And I think, to me, it's like, if somebody's worried about what kind of bike somebody else is riding, then I don't know why they care so much. Like, at the end of the day, we're all out there trying to have a good time, and I just find it really interesting there's even a debate at all. But no, I think they're awesome. I think they have a place in the sport. They have a place in events. I mean, there's a safety factor, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. If you have, some people on an e-bike could ride well past their capability and be a safety issue. So that's very possible, because you can go pretty fast on those bikes. But for the most part, I just don't understand why there's even a conversation around it. It just seems like we should welcome it, and those that want to ride one, go ride one, enjoy it.
Danny, I think people are so upset about it. Not upset, concerned, I think is a better term.
I think you're right. I think they're upset. I think people are upset about it.
When people hear that I got into Unbound 200, and they hear that I'm doing some of my training on an e-bike, I can't tell you the number of people who said, "Oh, Serena, do you really think that's a good idea? Are you potentially ruining your training and not going to be able to finish this race because you've been riding that bike?" And I've finally gotten to the place in my life where I care very little what someone else thinks about me. So sometimes I don't respond. But to all the people who have said that to me, my response is, actually, I think that it is better for me. Part of the reason I bought that bike last year is I want to ride with my friends, and I have some very, very fast friends. And while I could hold on with you guys for 3 or 4 hours, it would destroy me, and I couldn't do the rest of the week's workouts. Now I can ride that bike at a zone 2 pace for you two, which would probably be kind of my higher threshold pace. Now is zone 2 for me. So I'm getting the time in the saddle. I'm getting the heart rate where it needs to be. I'm getting the effort where it needs to be. And I can train the rest of the week. And I can't tell you how vindicating it almost was when I went out and rode a local race at the end of last year, found myself on the podium on my regular gravel bike. And just, it feels like, yeah, see, I told you, it's not undoing everything else that I'm trying to make happen. But many people are very, very concerned.
Yeah. Well, I guess that kind of moves into the next question, right, that we have here is like, does having an e-bike make sense? Like what are the practical uses? And Serena, you just brought up a great point. Like it allows you to stay in a group that you may not be able to on a regular bike, and that's okay. I know Travis, you mentioned the love-hate relationship with it because you hear that motor. And I will say when we're putting out efforts and Serena is right there and you hear that whine of the motor kick in, I think
Yeah.
you have one of two choices in your head. You can cave into the sound and you can say, gosh, I can't, she's got the bike, she's got the e-bike, she's getting the motor assist, and you can worry about your quote competition or the person that's next to you, or you can use that to fuel your own drive and say, you know what, I'm gonna wear that motor out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sustain my effort repeatedly, and I will wear that motor out. And I can't wait until the day that we're riding and that motor, the battery dies on it, and it's like, see you later. So I don't understand. Like, use it for motivation. Like it's good training all the way around. It's good. It's
Yeah.
good yeah.
When I hear it whining like that, I go, good. You're working hard
You're
too, buddy. I'm not the only one.
It did happen once, Danny. I think that was maybe one day you weren't with us. And for whatever reason, it stopped working. We were on this horrific hill and I was able to follow Travis to the top. But I mean, my whole body was slung over the handlebars by the time I got up, and he said, Serena, what happened? I said, the motor doesn't work. And now I'm hauling this 40-pound bike up this hill. And I think my heart's going to explode.
That's almost
And
as good as a single
the risk
speed.
I take, I suppose.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it is. And, again, I think it's awesome that it enables people to ride in a group. And I'll just say it, at the next Suffer Sooner group ride, all e-bikes are welcome.
Oh yeah.
So feel free, bring them on. And, and I think that, there's other reasons though an e-bike makes sense, and maybe outside of the sport here, but I mean, you think about the commuting aspect where a lot of people ride their bike, not only for fitness, but also to commute. So I think there's other reasons to have them, but gosh, for people to get so upset because you want to ride one in a group ride, or dare you share the road with the road or gravel bike if you've got an e-bike, like that's just crazy. I just can't get my head around that whole mentality. I really can't.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's just from a lack of understanding, or it's, you're not part of us, you're not the same as us, so you're different and therefore we don't like you. It's that old, cyclists are just a bunch of, humans in general are just a bunch of, small tribes together. and it's just like, you're different. We must go rail against you because you're riding a bike that has a motor. And and the thing is like, they feel like they're gonna lose their Strava KOMs, or it's somehow cheating or anything like that. But the e-bike now, they get flagged on Strava as an e-bike.
Yeah.
So the Strava doesn't count it. So Strava understands that that's an e-bike, and unless you've somehow programmed your way, unless you're gaming it, then and then that's you were basically what's gonna stop you from hanging your Garmin outside of the car as you drive up the hill. So
I guess some people just care that much. I don't know that I understand. To me, like, the only result that matters, if you really want to get into the competition, the only result that matters is race day.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's basically when we've all agreed that this is a race.
That's right.
and whoever, may the best man or woman finish. So, but I think it in the sense that does having an e-bike make sense? Yes. I really think that, like, especially around here where we have all these steep hills, like riding the e-bike on your easy day, I mean, keeps you well into zone 2, where a lot of these hills that we have around our house, and we go more north and whatever direction that we go, it's really hard to stay in zone 2. Like, a lot of my zone 2 rides that are supposed to be at a 0.7 intensity factor or below end up being 0.75 because we have to go up, Farmer's Hill or some stupid steep hill that's on the way out to the ride.
Yeah, you're putting out 400 watts just to stay upright and wondering why you can't stay in your zone. So that's a great point though, Travis. Like Serena, you mentioned some folks that are giving you a hard time about, well, maybe not a hard time, but questioning if riding an e-bike is the right thing for your training. But I think it's a great point. Like it enables you to stay in the prescribed workout where you otherwise could not. I mean, how many workouts have we had wrecked that, to your point, Travis, should have been in zone 2, but we ended up coming back from the ride and it's like, it should have been a 0.68 intensity factor and it was like a 0.88 intensity factor because we had to power up some hills, or because once you power up one hill, you can't stop. It's like a bag of potato chips. You get that first one and then you just got to rail every hill after that. So, so Serena, like maybe how has the e-bike, like, let's talk about it from that perspective. How has the e-bike like helped your training? Like you rode it a lot last year. In fact, I mean, you did a race with one, and so talk to us a little bit about how it has helped your training.
Well, I mean, again, there aren't a bunch of women gravel cyclists where I live. And I feel like it's almost dangerous sometimes for me to be out there all by myself. And I also know that I'm not going to ride my trainer for 4 or 5 hours. So I had to come up with some sort of solution. So the simple answer to your question, Danny, is it really helped my training because I was able to get outside. I was able to put in some really long efforts. I was able to feel safe while I did it. And I was able to protect the rest of my week training wise. So it has really helped me also learn where is that zone 2. So when I do get out in a race, I am better able to judge if I'm blowing myself up or not because I can now feel what I'm supposed to be doing. Whereas before, especially when I started riding gravel, it was really hard all the time. And that's what I thought it was always going to be. So for me, it really has become a really great training tool just to help me stay within myself. Knowing that there are going to be days where I'm going to have to go out there and work really, really hard. And I can do that on the e-bike. I can do that on my regular gravel bike. I can do it in a race. And then to your question about doing a race with it, I did ride open range on that bike last year. I had gotten COVID 2 weeks before the race and was really sick. I mean, sick in bed for a week. I had a raging headache. All of my data was telling me I was sick. My heart rate was high. My resting heart rate was high. My HRV was high. My respiratory rate was high. But I really wanted to go to Pratt. It's my hometown. I had planned to take my kids, and I wanted to see if I could still put 10, 12 hours in the saddle. The race director of Open Range is a good friend of mine. I've known him since high school cross country. I reached out to him, and he was nothing but welcoming of that idea. Just like you guys, we are so happy to see another woman out there on a bike trying to do something hard, Serena. Do whatever way you want to get out here and do this. We're happy to have you. Even so much that we talked about, was there a place that I could, if I really felt like it, ride my regular bike for part of the race and swap bikes? And I instantly said that I was not looking to be part of the official results. It really was just a training day for me. And he was somewhat resistant to that idea. So I'm all for inclusivity, and I'm thankful that I got to go out that day. And I was one of the few women who finished that 200-kilometer course, which was a really good accomplishment for me. And it was a really important training day for me as I prepared for Unbound 100. And I think that I wouldn't have gone back and tried to do it on my regular bike or not gone at all. It was the right choice for me at that time.
Yeah, I mean, you were getting ready to go into Unbound 100 for the first time, and basically, your average, your TSS for that ride was 603, which is a lot. So it wasn't an easy day in the saddle for sure. I'm just looking at your stats to see if there's anything else. So Training Peaks gave you an intensity factor of 0.31, which is I would say is good for because it was the e-bike doing some of the help. But how did you? I mean, the thing is like an e-bike battery does not last 120 miles. So what? How did you plan on? Like, was there extra batteries? Like, what was the plan for that?
My husband, I think I've said this before, is one of the most understanding, kindest humans on the planet. The e-bike that I have has an internal battery that will go somewhere between 50 and 70 miles, depending on what mode you ride it in. You can get a second external battery that sits in one of the water bottle cages that will give you somewhere between 20 and 40 more. And then I had a third one that I was able to get online for a discount, but I was still a little worried that if I caught a big headwind or it was really sandy out there, that still wasn't going to quite get it done. So Ryan met me at the first aid station, took the external battery that I had killed and drove it to the third aid station and plugged it in behind a vending machine and took a picture of it and sent it to me. So when I finally made it to Medicine Lodge, Kansas, I took a walk down the block, got my battery, put it on my bike, and then put the used battery and the charger in the drop bag, and it made it back to Pratt. So I think that, again, just with a little bit of planning and kind of knowing what your limitations are, you really can do a lot of things that maybe would not have been possible 5, 10 years ago. And I'm just so thankful that I got to go out there and have that day.
Well, I think too, I mean, it also is setting you up for the things you want to accomplish this year. So you've taken that experience, you're building on it. And to your point, you wouldn't have that experience otherwise, right? Like you weren't in a position where you could do that ride because you were recovering from being sick and
yeah, she was super sick for like the first 2 weeks. So like there's no way like I think thinking back on that, she was like, well, what am I going to do? Should I drop down to the 100 and just ride the e-bike for the 100? Or should I just ride my gravel bike? Or should I just not even go? And I was like, well, you have to do something. And it was, and I was like, well, let's see. And then Serena came up with the idea of, well, what if I rode my gravel bike, my e-bike, the whole open range, the whole 200K. And I was like, I'm like, if they're going to let you do that, that'd be great. Cause that's 8 hours in the saddle.
Well, that's just it. Like you're still putting the time
you still
and
have to, you still have to pedal. And it's not like your heart rate for that whole thing was, average heart rate 145. I mean, that's basically the same for me. I had to ride, and granted me and Serena's heart rates are not exactly the same, but it's not like it was 65. She was sitting, asleep on a recliner as it pedaled her all the way around Pratt, Kansas. No, like she had to put in the effort. She had to steer the bike. She had to take it over through the prairies. She had to put out effort when she needed to. She had to climb the hills.
Yeah.
Granted, it was assisted, but it's still like
I had to do it. Yeah.
She didn't run it on super turbo mode because she had to save battery. Right. It was just the eco mode where it's kind of like you have like a light tailwind at your back.
Well, and I think too, like there's a lot of folks that, don't know what open range is. They don't know much about the course itself. And I think, we want to get the race director on here to kind of talk a little bit about the race in an upcoming episode, because it's a phenomenal race. It's like one of the best kept secrets in the Midwest. And it's like, we don't want it to be a secret because it's such an awesome race and it has a little bit of everything. So, we talk about the e-bike, you do a gravel bike, all that stuff, but like that course has everything. I mean, it has some single track sections. It has some downhill sections. It has some really tough climbs. It has a tough road climb in there. It has, to your point, Travis, you have all kinds of stuff through the prairies and through ditches that you have to go through. And if that's not enough, you get a couple of miles of just straight sand. And then you get the benefit of a 40-mile-an-hour headwind every
Yep.
couple turns that you make. So it's got everything you could ask for in terms of challenge, difficulty, the elements that are being thrown at you. And to say, well, but you did it on an e-bike, you still had to get through all of that. It's an awesome accomplishment, especially given the circumstances and the fact that now, Serena, you get to use that to build on for what you're getting ready to do this year. It's just awesome. And I think the result, Serena, didn't they decide because of you kind of forged the trail here, like they're going to do a e-bike division now, right?
Yes. Eric again is my good friend, and after it was all said and done, he sent me a text and said, "Serena, I don't see a finish time for you. What was your finish time? Why didn't you cross the finish line?" I said, "Oh, well, Eric, again, this was a training day for me. I just wanted to cover the distance. I didn't cross the finish line. My chip never went across." And he said, "Well, I need to know that time. I want it to be part of everything that happened that day because I think it's really extraordinary." And he and I had a long back and forth about it. He said, "I really want to do an e-bike division. I think it's all about inclusivity. I want more people out here on bikes." And they have one now this year. It's for the for the 100-kilometer course. It's non-competitive, but again, I think he is really in touch with how can we get more people out here doing something that is truly extraordinary, regardless of how you do it. So
That's
kudos to him,
awesome.
I guess.
No, that is awesome.
Though I was a little upset when there was a less than flattering picture of me splashed all over social media.
We can put it on here. We can show it.
Yeah, we should do that. Maybe we'll do that for the next episode when we get Eric.
Yeah, we'll show all our unflattering photos.
Yeah.
But no, I saw Serena at the finish line when she didn't go. I saw her go around the block. And I was like, you didn't go through the finishing chute. She's like, well, I'm on an e-bike. And this speaks to Serena's character too, is that like, she's like, no, I just wanted to do the race, even though it was on an e-bike. I didn't, you just feel like, okay, well, since I was doing it on this, it shouldn't count against the rest of everybody else. She was worried about everybody else's finishing, like she didn't want to taint the numbers. Just that type of character, is just shows through in what she did and the reason she didn't want to cross the finish line. It's just like, if we were to, take a shortcut, we wouldn't want to be like, oh, I got off course and I somehow came here before the finishing guys. Like, no, I wouldn't want that to be, I want to win the race on, or I want to do the race on the race's terms, not get ahead because of some technicality. And I think that just shows just an upstanding character, and the fact that she was like, no, I don't want to cross the finish line. And let's say some other woman was there and she did it on a regular bike, but she got less, she was lower there lower position because of her. So I mean, that's just and it's just great to but see that in an athlete.
I couldn't agree more. And here's the other thing. So there's all this, there's a lot of frustrating things about sports. The deeper into them, I come from a baseball background with coaching my kids and seeing the whole cycle play out. But this is where gravel cycling is. Everybody wants to know well, what's the spirit of gravel and what does that actually mean? And why is it so popular and why is it different than road biking or some other, any other? It's like, this is why, because I was with Serena, I was riding with you. Both of us were. We were riding with you for a good chunk of the first part of that race. And as people were acknowledging and recognizing that you were on an e-bike, I didn't hear a single negative comment. People were welcoming that. And it's like you want to talk about spirit of gravel. It's like, everybody, you check your ego at the door, guys, and let's go out and ride and have fun and enjoy it. And Serena, even though you didn't cross the finish line because you didn't want to skew the numbers and all those things, I guarantee there's probably not a single person on that finishers list that would have even cared, because you know what? You're just another rider out there. We're all having a good time.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to the, I'll read this quote from Open Range. and just kind of sums up their whole belief in the race was we believe that e-bikes have a place not to be competitive but to encourage more people on bikes. Open Range's primary mission is to showcase the amazing beauty of the area to others. A race is a secondary objective. Riders can't draft off e-bikes, and e-bikes can't be used to support other riders. So I think that just really just kind of sums up what that race is really about, is just getting out there and experiencing that whole area. And I don't know what it is. When Serena told me about this race, that it was her hometown race 3 years ago, and she told me about Pratt, Kansas, and I didn't even know what Pratt, Kansas was, or where it was, or where it is, like, where, if you said pick out where Pratt, Kansas is on a map of Kansas, I would have never guessed where it is. It's
what's a Pratt?
Yeah, what's a Pratt? But you get out there, and I tell you what, I don't know what it is about that part of the country. I don't know what it is about Kansas, or just gravel riding in general, but just riding out in those open prairies where you're just the only soul around for miles. And I mean miles. You can see for 50 miles, and you're the only person. You and maybe a handful of other bike riders are the only people out there. I mean, there's just something amazing about that.
Yeah, it's a great time for sure.
And the views and stuff. So I will go back to that race and ride it as much as I can for as long as I can.
Yeah.
So,
Danny, the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting about that race was I was expecting some flack when people figured out the bike that I was riding. But I would say overwhelmingly the response that I got from other riders were people who wanted to know, how does this bike work? How far can it go? How much of an assist does it give? Do you think that my wife could ride it? It would be amazing if my father could come out and ride with me. How much does it cost? I mean, really overwhelmingly, people were just very interested. And again, because they knew someone or they themselves would have the potential to do something that they couldn't probably do before.
Yeah. And that's the big thing about the e-bike, is that, like, I mean, that's the whole, the bottom line to this whole conversation is to get more people out there and experiencing this, like, I mean, if you could get your husband would probably never want to ride with us ever again after we almost killed him the last time. But if we got him, out there, and he's probably seen, because he's from a little bit north of there. But if he was out there on the Flint Hills, like on Unbound, I mean, how amazing would that be, to him, or something like that, to see that,
Yeah. Poor Ryan. I think he will ride with us again. We do have to give some instruction before we throw people on that bike, because I think he was really worried the day he rode with us that the battery was going to die, not knowing how much capacity it had. So he would only use it on the hills and was pushing that bike, 35-pound bike, on the flats, and he was destroyed after it. But I think he'll come out again. He's a busy guy. And sometimes he thinks we are doing things too far to the extreme.
Yeah.
That was really the whole purpose of buying it in the first place, was I wanted him to be able to ride with me.
Yeah. Well, I think we covered just about every angle of that topic. I don't think there's any question where this group stands on e-bikes.
So. Yeah, no, I love it. I wanted to know, so other than the batteries for Open Range, was there any other, like, e-bike considerations that you needed on such this, on this long of a ride? Was there, like, did you pack extra, like, anything, like, out of the ordinary that you would not normally pack on a gravel ride? Like, I mean, most of the time on a gravel ride, we usually pack a spare tube, a couple CO2s, spare tire if it's going to be like in the Flint Hills, but out there it's just mostly sand, so you didn't have to do that. But was there any extra considerations for stuff to pack on Open Range, Serena?
No, and I think that was part of the reason it was important for me to do it. It was just a trial run for Unbound for me. What do I need to cover this distance? I just have an extra bag that sits on the front handlebars that carries that extra battery. And it gets a little tricky sometimes in that I only have one water bottle cage instead of two. So
Okay.
sometimes when you guys are out and you can get along with two water bottles, I have to have a pack. But other than that, it didn't change much about that day, other than it was just a really great opportunity to kind of test what I needed for Unbound.
Yeah, and you worked on your fueling for that day, right? That was the goal of that day.
Yes.
Yeah. So the fueling strategy going into Unbound was what you worked on there, which is good because I mean that was 8 hours of basically fueling yourself, getting ready for Unbound, and I think you finished Unbound in about the same amount of time, right? If I remember off, yes, It-
Well, yes.
yes, yeah. Well,
Right.
I mean, yeah, ride time, but basically another hour, what total time. So, you know, that's great. Like it was a great training race for you to practice that one aspect of your nutrition, even though you did feel like you still weren't fully recovered. You still went out there and got it done. Um, what's your favorite part of that open range course?
The course itself or the whole race? My favorite part is
The finish
going
line?
back somewhere that I haven't been in 20 years and seeing people who I haven't seen in a very long time who are kind of surprised and proud of me on where I stand in my 40s. My
Yeah.
favorite part of that course is after, I think it's about mile, I don't know, 50 or 60, and you get into these red kind of canyony hills, and it kind of reminded me of Nevada a little bit. And it was just one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen out there in the sand hills. I really liked that section.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you're getting towards Oklahoma, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
then
it
you're
came at a good time for me because the other thing I really got out of that day was one of the things I had to really train my brain for for Unbound is I'm going to be bored and miserable and want to not do this anymore. So the more practice I had, just being out there for that long and being unhappy was valuable too.
what did you take any devices? Did you try to listen to music or
I
any of
did.
that stuff? Okay.
I have a pair of the Shocks. The name is leaving my brain right now. Bone conduction headphones.
Yep.
And I wore those and I had my phone with me. And I listened to music for a while, and sometimes I'll listen to an audiobook or a podcast. But again, depending on what the conditions were, it took every ounce of my brain power to make it through that ranch.
Yeah. Yeah. That you have to be completely focused on. It's pretty good single track. I mean, it's kind of a double track ranch road, but there's only really one good side that you can ride on. There's some rocks, there's some ruts, there's some jumping creeks, there's some sand pits. Yeah, it's kind of got a little bit of everything on that second ranch road.
See, I think
Which
that's grace, Travis. There was no road out there. You just had to get
Yeah.
from flag 1 to flag 2.
There were a couple of sections like that. I
yeah,
remember
it's like it's you're going from flag to flag. Yeah, it's definitely some route finding for sure.
the first time I rode that course, there, to your point, Travis, there was nobody for miles, and you're like, how do I know I'm in the right spot? Like, and you see a flag like up on the hill, maybe 100 yards up or so, and you're like, oh, I think that's where I'm going. And
Yeah.
it's pretty wild. And you talk about the favorite part, like, yeah, the scenery is great, but I think just being out there like that, like the race opens up to the point where it's like, yeah, you just won't see anybody, and it's a pretty surreal feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I try to ride with people, but it's the thing with gravel is either you never really find somebody who's your right speed. They're either a little too fast for you or
Or you're a little too fast for them.
Yeah, you're a little too fast for them, and you're like, do I compromise myself to stay with them? And I wouldn't ask them to compromise their race in to pull me along. So it's just it's so you find yourself out there all alone. I know
yeah.
Serena likes to listen to music, but I did that whole thing without any music.
Same.
Yeah.
I can't I've got to be focused. I think it's something about this just race events in general. Like when we're out riding, like I don't mind throwing a pair of headphones on if I'm by myself or something, but you know, like Serena said, the bone conducting type, so you can still hear everything. But when we're in events, like I can't do it. Like I try to just lock in. And like when we did Unbound 200 and it was, 15, 16, 17 hours in, you're just like, yeah, all right, still trying to focus.
I did bring headphones for Unbound 200, and I did listen to them basically right when it was the most miserable, when it was so hot. Just so I needed something to take my mind off of the fact that my whole body was just trying to cramp, and I was just so hot. And then I was listening to music, and that helped. And then I felt the cold wind, and then the weather started to change, and then I had to pack them up because they're not completely waterproof. So I was just like, all right, well, that's the end of that. And then it started raining, and then that was, they served their purpose. They made that unbearable part bearable so I could continue on. So,
yeah.
But no, I think that's, open range. And we're going to get the race director on, hopefully. If not, then we're just going to talk. We're going to spend a whole podcast talking about this race. Even
he said yes.
Depth.
Sorry.
Oh, good. So that'll be great. Yeah, we'll have him on, and we'll have all that other fun stuff. But
I think it'd be really good. So one live update. Thanks, Serena, because that's really awesome to hear that he'd be willing to do this. I think some of the things, like, it'd be really interesting to hear his perspective on like the course and how I'm sure there's a story behind how the course was established, because it's been the same course for a few years now, at least for the last several years that we've done it. And I'm sure there's a story around it, but I think that for those of you that are in the area, in the Midwest area, and everybody's heard of Unbound, but there are a lot more races besides Unbound. And quite honestly, I think open range is probably, I mean, it's kind of controversial, but I think it's all in all a better experience from a ride and race perspective, because it's just a totally different type of course. And Unbound's great, don't get me wrong, but I was very, very pleasantly surprised when after finishing open range the first time, and now we're back for year 3, right? So
yeah,
it's outstanding.
Yeah, the other thing I'll be interested to ask Eric too is, last year they took out a second ranch section of that course because it was too muddy. Mm-hmm. How he came to that decision versus what we can affectionately call Mudbound 2 months later, where they did not make that decision. I suspect that there's some real interesting dynamics that go into those choices too.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that'll be a great race director question for him too. Does, is he, because this open range, like, we say it's beautiful and it's nice, but it's probably one of the hardest races that I have done ever. Like Unbound 200, it's long, but it's not hard. It's the hardness is the fact that it's long,
right?
The fact that you have to be out there 17 hours. Now, open range is hard because it's 30 miles?
130, yeah.
Yeah, but there's a chance that you can have a 40-mile-an-hour headwind in places, a 40-mile-an-hour wind. And
a better than good chance.
Yeah. And so imagine that all day. It's Kansas.
No relief.
The wind just blows. There's no trees. There's no mountains. It's prairie. It's just the wind. I can't explain to people, like, riding in that wind. I am never going to complain about a headwind ever again. It's just, it was 9 hours of just screaming wind in my ears the whole time. It was.
You make it sound so enjoyable, Travis. I mean, you're really selling this pretty good.
But the thing is like, I think there's and what I'm trying to get to is that there is something really magical about that type of completing of an event like that. That's hard, but it's hard because it's not hard because like Mudbound, where it's just like, oh, you rip your derailleur off and the circumstances that way. It's hard because the elements are hard, but it's nothing. One thing's not going to destroy your whole day.
Yeah.
Like the wind's not going to stop, but it's not going to like blow you off your bike. You
Right.
know, it's strong enough, but it's not. You're not going to end up 2 counties over. It's and the terrain is hard, but it's not like you're mountain biking on a gravel bike. There's and it's marked and it's and there's paths and the GPS coordinates are really good. So it's all these things that amount to a really epic ride that makes it so that I'll keep coming back. Whereas Unbound is epic in the fact that it's long and there can be weather and there can be mud and it's all these little circumstances that pop out. Whereas if it's a perfectly nice 70-degree day, Unbound is a beautiful race and it's relatively, I'm not going to say easy, but it's relatively straightforward to ride 200 miles.
Yeah, and I think they just offer different types of experiences, and maybe it's not fair to say one's better than the other or not, whatever the case may be. I think what it really comes down to is there are a handful of events that are put on by race directors across the country and now across the world for gravel, but there are a handful of events that when you get done doing it, you go, now that is a premium event. And that is one that if you get the opportunity to go back to it over and over and over again, you're going to do it over and over and over again. And there are many races like that. I mean, a lot of local events, what people think of as local events, I'm just riding my gravel roads that are, meander through the countryside. And there's nothing wrong with that. Those are great events too. Don't get me wrong. But I think when you're a race director and you're fortunate enough to have routes around you that offer the types of challenges that are offered here, and the same with Unbound, like that's why Unbound gained its legendary status, right? I mean, it's just the unique offering that the landscape and the elements provide is a different level of challenge. It's a different type of challenge. And I think that's why I keep saying open range is one of those, it's a best kept secret. And I hope we'll hear, I think we'll hear from Eric, like, how's registration looking? I'm really curious. Like, I have to think it's doing nothing but growing, but who knows? And I think, coming back to the topic of the day, I think this is why the e-bike thing is such an important topic, because, a lot of people heard what you just said, Travis, and they're going, oh my gosh, I would never consider doing something like that. Why in the world would I think I'm going to get on my bike and ride into a 40-mile-an-hour headwind for 10 hours? And an e-bike means you don't have to necessarily, but you still get to go experience that excitement that you can probably hear in our voices. Like, that's the beauty of it. And I think the fact that, these guys were some of the first that at least that we're aware of to offer a division to help people create those experiences. To me, that just means it's going to do nothing but grow the sport, because guess what? Some number of those people that start out on an e-bike will say, I think I can suffer just a little bit more. And then they're going to go on a real bike, on a regular bike. I shouldn't say real bike. It's not the wrong way to say it. Then I'm going to go on a normal bike and I'm going to try it that way. And I think that's awesome. I really do. I think it's incredible. I think you're going to see growth in the sport if people embrace this. So
yeah,
good stuff.
Definitely. So anything else you want to talk about your first ever e-bike finish at Open Range?
No, I think that's really kind of wraps up e-biking for me. It's just one tool in a big fleet, as Ryan would say, of bikes and training tools I have available to me, and I've been really thankful for it. But the other thing I would say too is that there are so many amazing races here in the Midwest, and now having been able to do lots of them over the last few years, well, I'm going to go to Unbound this year and I'm going to take a swing at the 200. I just really hope that people will look at some of these other options that are out there. We really like this one here in Kansas City, near Kansas City and Ottawa, called Bad Astra. But as Danny said, that there's a race he'll always go back to. I truly loved Big Sugar this year, and that's another lifetime event.
Yeah.
But I thought that race and that course and the scenery there was one of the most stunning things I have ever seen in my whole life. So I think you can just go out and find something that really suits you, and that may be different for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's beautiful about this sport, is that there is so many different facets to riding a bike, that you can just, and there's so many places to ride it, that you can just find what, you really enjoy, and you find beautiful out there, for sure. I think that's totally great. I would like to see how, like, you guys would compare Big Sugar to Unbound, since we're going to do them both this year.
Big Sugar to Unbound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we can. That's definitely a future episode, and I think obviously both of those events are sold out this year. So if you're thinking about doing it, you can still find, like, there's still ways to get into Big Sugar. Like, people may have to transfer or whatever, or there may be some spots that open up, but they are very interesting similarities and some wild differences between both of those races. And Serena, I think you summarized it really well. Big Sugar was the end of the season for me, and a great surprise, and a lot of fun to finish up the 2023 season with. Good stuff.
good stuff. Well, on the last topic of the day, how is the bike search going, Serena?
Well,
I don't know that Danny has time for this. Maybe we'll save it for next week.
Travis, Travis, you weren't supposed to say anything. I think Serena was trying to keep this one quiet from Ryan.
Yeah.
I know,
I don't
right?
think she hasn't talked to Ryan about this yet. They don't. He doesn't
Maybe
know
we'll
what.
just say the bike search is ongoing. I'm having a very interesting time about it, and we could talk all about that another day. Maybe someday I will have a new bike, or my current bike will be in a totally different setup with a lot of new pieces. Ongoing. The answer is ongoing.
Ongoing. Good.
It's the classic. Like, you know what the proper number of bikes is, right? It's always N+1. Everybody knows this.
Yep, N+1.
So Serena, the correct answer is the bike search is going really, really well, and the order button is almost pushed.
Yep. Almost on it.
Well, and what's funny about that is Ryan believes that the correct number is N-1. So I think his last comment was, okay, that's fine. But what bikes, and he used the word plural, will you be selling to get this new one?
You're going to sell the old, like, little kids' bikes.
Okay.
Right.
There you go.
Those are going out into the wild because your kids are getting bigger, right?
That's right.
Sure.
They need new bikes too.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, these are all easy answers that you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all easy stuff. So, Serena, I'm glad to hear it's going really well.
Yeah. No, you're not meeting with any resistance. That's great.
Thank goodness the camera is not on, because I can feel the tears welling in my eyes.
So I think what you're saying is Ryan has okayed the purchase of a new S-Works Diverge STR, right? Is that what I heard? I heard that,
No,
Travis.
I wouldn't go that far. And everybody has an opinion on what the correct bike is. Some think it's the S-Works STR. Some people think it is my current Cannondale with all kinds of modifications. Someone told me the other day that, do you say it Lauf is the right answer?
Oh, yeah. It's a good brand.
There's all kinds of things out there.
Yeah, the thing that it was with the Lauf, though, is that shock, again, is a leaf spring shock. There's no rebound dampening on it, so you can't adjust how fast the bars come back to you.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, if you flex the bars down, like going over a bump, it will tend to feel like it's trying to buck you off.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So,
back at you. Yeah.
so the thing that I would say is, Serena, you're not a big, hefty, massive human like I am. I would say that, like, for me, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but for someone that's a lighter frame than that, I would say that it's probably something that you would not like, and knowing from experience, like from knowing you, that you will probably not like the fact that it's trying to push you back into the saddle every time you hit a bump. So it's trying to
and I
push
think
you
we could
off
have
the
a
front.
long conversation about this too, because guess what else? I am not a mechanic. I feel like I have been forced over the last couple of weeks to learn a whole bunch about bike mechanics that I don't want to know. I asked Travis yesterday, and I still believe that this should be the right answer. Where's the bike that I can order and take out of the box and start riding? Like, even what I think is probably the right setup for me is now going to require new handlebars, and it's probably going to require a different stem and potentially a different seat post. I mean,
Yeah.
the
Well,
number of moving parts in a bike that can be adjusted to make it the perfect bike for me is so overwhelming.
Serena, what you just described is exactly what bike racers deal with all the time. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you're not unique here. I mean, all bike racers deal with this type of situation. The only people that get to take a bike out of the box and just ride it are the casual riders, of which you are not. We've already established that you are a bike racer, and you just haven't accepted that yet.
Yet another
Yeah.
conversation for another date too, because I'm fairly certain I told you all, and I still believe it in my heart. And you can disagree with you all you want. Perhaps you believe I am a bike racer. I am a bike rider who is looking for a recliner to get me from point A to point
Hey,
B
hey,
in a
Travis.
reasonable amount of time.
Hey, Travis.
Yeah.
How many bike riders have you seen podium at bike races?
Yeah, exactly. I just keep telling her that the Serena that when Serena puts a bib number on, she is not the Serena that we all know and love. She turns into beast mode, and then
Oh my gosh.
she is ready to get to suffer. So that Serena is different from this Serena that you're listening to right now. Discuss
Yeah.
that she wants to ride a recliner.
Yeah. Well, like you said, Serena, that's another topic for another day. We have a lot to talk about because this bike search, it's no matter where it goes, it's going to be fun to give you a hard time over it. So,
Yeah. No, I think it's going. You've narrowed it down. You've seen some of the pitfalls that happen, especially in the industry. And all that stuff. And of course, everybody's gonna say, "Oh, this should be this way. This should be that way." And in the end, it's really what feels comfortable to you. It's yes, we want you to ride the most comfortable thing, and if you have to imagine it being a recliner, that's fine. Because if you're comfortable, you'll be able to put out power for longer and therefore go faster, and then therefore place higher.
here's what and this is kind of on a more serious note. Here's what this whole exercise has proven, at least in Serena. You can tell me if this is accurate or not. It has proven that the bike industry has overcomplicated their products so much that you have to have like a degree in research studies to be able to figure out how to get through the product catalog to arrive at the type of bike that you want. It shouldn't be that hard. Like, it really shouldn't be. So all kidding aside, like, it's almost like there are just too many choices, and there's too much specialty in bikes.
Yep.
And maybe that's necessary because there really are marginal gains that people care about. I'm going to guess the majority of people out there will never understand nor care about those marginal gains. They just want a bike to ride and go have a good time.
Yeah.
Well, Danny, and I'll take it a step further than that. You also need a group of people or a person who has a high level of expertise who can help you make this decision on the front end. I think that really has been the takeaway for me is I have to buy the right size bike, or it doesn't matter how extraordinary the bike fitter is. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So you almost need someone who you trust, who doesn't have their pocketbook in the game to help you pick the bike to buy, which has really been the takeaway for me this week.
Well, I can't wait to talk more about that because I think there's a lot of opinions about that, and we have some folks here with some firsthand experience and some of that. So more topics for another day, Travis. I can't wait. This is gonna be a fun one to keep following up on.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how the next couple of weeks where we're trying to narrow it down. If she ends up getting a new bike, she's gonna have to get it pretty soon. If she's gonna continue to ride the other bike, then we're gonna have to get all the parts ordered and stuff. So it's gonna get pretty exciting here in the next couple of weeks, especially for Serena.
And that's all if I don't tear my ACL or my rotator cuff while snowboarding with my son this weekend, right?
Yes. So that you gotta come home safe and sound. All right.
All right.
So all right. All right, guys. Well, suffer complete. Good job.
Got it.
I went to the wrong thing again. All right. Here we go.
Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, please comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. If you have ideas for topics, questions, or would like coaching, please email suffersooner@gmail.com. And remember, sometimes you just have to suffer sooner.